Hello. Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for staying for our conversation. I just want to say I'm really honored to be here today among you. I know that um, most people here are artists, filmmakers. Um, just gives me a lot of joy to be able to share this with you today and to be the artist in focus at Mimesis this year. So thank you, Eric, and everyone and everyone at the team. Oh my gosh, it's filming. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That was such a glorious, just glorious film. It was just luscious. I had lots of things I wanted to ask you about, but I'm sure many other people do too. I wondered if you could just start by kind of sharing with us how khat found you, or how you came upon, how you found it.
Oh, okay. So, you know where I grew up in Harar. Mm, growing up there, you know, jazz is part of the culture. You know, it's something that we saw everywhere. There are jazz farms surrounding, the city, so it was never something alien to me. When my grandmother came to visit us, we'd have to buy her jazz and get the incense going, the whole mattress on the floor, and get the mood right, for her. So it's something that I grew up seeing, but never as when after I left Ethiopia and I returned, probably like 15 years, almost 20 years, I don't know, so many years later, it Jat, the presence of Jat was just incredibly overwhelming. I had never, or I don't remember it like that. I'd never experienced it. And sure enough, it had become the economic force around which life evolves in Harar. So that was how I found it, actually, returning. And there are so many things that made the chat more visible when I returned, because one, again, it was the abundance of it. Chat had come to replace a lot of the crops that I grew up with, teff, sorghum, and even coffee. And so just even that in itself was very, shocking. But then there was also this other element that moved me a lot, and which is an incredible amount of unemployment. And that unemployment, basically, what is the youth to do? And that chat became, because it used to be sort of like a means to an end for the farmer. When you wake up in the morning, there is this thing they call ijabana, which is it's called the eye opener. So you chew a little bit, but it's to give you force so that you can go and farm and so forth, or work. So it was always a means to an end, but then now it had become an end in itself. Why? Because there was so much frustration that was a way of kind of like, as they say, killing time. And so, these are the things that I found, or chat, when I went back.
And how did just to follow up? How did Chet then find you? I suppose as like a kind of center. Was it slowly that it became kind of like a sort of central or theme in the film? I mean, was the film always about Chet, or was it? Did it begin as kind of just about a journey back, or a?
No, it started about that.
Okay.
You know, it was
Yeah.
for me. It was my reaction to seeing this the incredible amount of youth just completely taken by it. The farms completely taken by that. So it started because I wanted to understand what is going on. Why are we medicating so much? I wanted to learn. Um, and then it became about life.
Thanks. Who has a question about Chet or anything else?
First of all, that was thank you so much. That was a beautiful film. I was struck by your use of the term killing time because I found the fragmentation of time and of light to be really central. And, you know, I felt like I was always on the verge of understanding these relationships and characters, but it was a little bit veiled. And clearly the cinematography also did that with a lot of the scenes. So I wonder if you could talk about the way you thought about time, and because you shot it over a long period of time, right? 10 years in the making of the film. Can you talk about how you thought about time as you pieced it together?
You know, when I started making this film, I didn't understand, or I didn't know necessarily, or I didn't have like this big vision about like, oh, I'm gonna make a documentary. I was simply very curious to understand things. I I wanted to know, so I started just doing interviews because I wanted to learn. I wanted to listen to people. That's all I wanted to do. I would just put my camera down and that's it. You know, would listen to learn, to try to understand. And then once I did, but you know, once I did that, then I started going into the farms and started shooting. Um, and slowly, you know, like I feel like a certain language, a certain vocabulary started to come. Um, and what it is that when when I was shooting this film, I was always thinking and also imagining um, uh, it's just, sort of the high of chat as well, the marcana, you know, and how it feels, how it shields, you know, because for most people it's also a shield from whatever else is happening. It's anti-stressor, it's de-stressor, it's anti-frustration, it's anti everything. It's the thing that releases you from the bounds and the tyranny of space and time. And so as such, for me, that was a very exciting concept, you know, and I feel like I just went for that because it was about liberation. It was about liberation. The Oromo people were there about their liberation. You know, from that political oppression. Um, there's also, you know, people wanting to be liberated also from the economic grip that that is having, you know, on people. But most importantly, again, it was a way of just kind of release yourself. Without that place will not function. at all at this moment, you know. So cinematically, and it's not like something that I'm like, oh well, cinematically this was you know what I mean. I like no, but I realized that with time and in retrospect, yeah, because you know, for me, as I was making this film, the thing that was most important, I think, for me, was to be able to feel free to engage with the presence, whatever presence and whatever moves me, to release the things that come in between me and what I am trying to do, such as, I don't know, do I want to make it look like this? Or, you know, for it to be more understood, or to be more, I don't know, commercial, or, you know, like any of these type of ideas, I want it also to be released, you know, from those. And so therefore, that's why it also took 10 years, because I had to fund it myself. I try to approach a few producers. Most of them were demanding to know who am I exposing and who is the bad guy and that type of stuff, or you know, I don't know. And I didn't have one. You know, like, I mean, it's more of I don't know. It wasn't about that. So I think it was around 2016 that I decided I am not even going to engage anybody anymore. That's it, you know, like, and I had come so far already. So, but imagine, even until 2016, which started from 2011, all those years, even though I was shooting myself, even though I was funny at myself, I was still thinking, oh, I'm gonna need a producer because we need to hire a proper DP, and we need to do proper, I don't know what, you know. But the truth is that I was already doing it, but I wasn't realizing, you know, I was, why? Because there were so many, I don't know, um, fear, um, shame, you know, whatever, or, you know, inability to just recognize, you know, not giving myself credit just because, oh, a film is supposed to be done this way, or if, you know, I don't know, just all of that stuff. So, you know, to me, you know, making this film was about liberating myself from all of that, and liberating also the image from having to have a certain um, a re- um, um, responsibility to a plot or any of that. So I don't know. It just, for me, I guess it, it was also personal in that sense, because I was also seeking my own form of liberation in all kinds of ways, you know, spiritual too. I don't know what I was saying. I forgot your question, you know?
Thank you so much for sharing this film. I thought it was so beautiful. And I couldn't help but notice that there was a dedicated contour of softness to the way that you approached shooting this film, whether it was the subjects, smoke, nature. There's just this very sort of dreamlike, almost ethereal quality to it. Also, a lot in the sound. I noticed it was somewhat ethereal, even in the vocalizations. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your perspective on shooting, why softness, and what sort of soul or intention you hope to imbibe in your film through that perspective.
Thank you for the question. But just a quick question before before I answer. In the way that you, when you say softness, what are you referring to?
I noticed in a lot of the way that you shot, there's like a gradient, a sort of like a very like visual sort of almost tangible softness, especially in a lot of the outdoor scenes, in the smoke. What comes to mind are shots of the moon where the clouds kind of just fade out. And it just seems that whereas some filmmakers might take a very kind of hyper realistic, direct, sharp focus on the way that they shoot films, it seems that you have a much more like a gentleness in the way that you chose to shoot your film. And so I was just hoping you could speak a little bit to your perspective in approaching the visual elements of your film that way.
Okay, I understand. But thank you so much. Um, I think it has to do a lot with memory. I was really thinking a lot about what we do with memory, how we represent memory or how we present memory. Um, and, to me, this film was a large part a memory for me, because I was going back and I was having, I mean, as I'm shooting, imagine, like I grew up there. So it's not just, for me, it was not just like, oh, a discovery, or all of that had already a lot of root in memory, because these memories would be activated, would be triggered one way or another. And so my response to that was filming it the way I film it, because that's the way I was perceiving it. You know, um, uh, there was a Sufi imam that one time, as we were having a conversation, he said, the observer, because as we were talking about film, and by the way, I learned so much about cinema, through the Sufis. And he said, because he was talking a lot about how, the work that I was doing was about observing, and he said, well, you should know that the observer is the observed. And so whatever you observe and the way that you observe it, it says pretty much everything about you, more than anything. Yeah. So yeah, I think, to me, it was my perception, my observation of what I don't know how to say it, but it was that I feel like it was so infused with that memory of having lived there, and more importantly, the cyclicality of things. When I left the country, we were uprooted very suddenly. I mean, we had like, what, 70 hours to leave. It was just, one of those. And coming back, it's almost like, because when you leave, um, when you didn't want to leave, it's terrible. Your mind starts looking back. Even at a young age, I was always looking back. These memories. It's almost like urging you not to be forgotten. It's something that you want to hold on to so much. I think something similar was happening with the youth today, with Muhammad, with Ibrahim, the one that came back, and they are grappling, especially Ibrahim, the one who left and came back. He said, and the things that he was saying were just so resonating. It's the same thing, today with the war again. Here we are having to leave. None of these kids truly want to live. They love, their food, their country, their this and that. It's not this idea of people wanting to, or wanting to go for the American dream, or I don't know, Western dream, or whatever. People are running away from things, So Ibrahim looking back already, because he said memories is all you travel with. And I want to say something about this the voiceovers, the conversations. I don't speak the Oromo language. I speak Amharic because that was the language at the time that the official or the working language school, but not the Oromo or not the Harari. Even though I grew up with Oromo and Harari kids, so for the most part, I never know what they were saying. They would give me the gist after we finish. I'm like, okay, what were you guys talking about? Oh, I was saying this or that. But it's not until the translations came fully that I really realized what they were saying, what they were saying to each other. Or even Hashim Abdi, saying his poem. I don't know what it meant, but when I found what it meant, it was just so incredible. And I was just thinking, what was I doing when they were when they were saying all of that? And even, I guess I was filming, I was just quietly filming it. The language, not knowing the language, also released me from having these mental stuff, it just released me, and I was able to just focus on pure intuition. I, I mean, you may not understand the language, but if you listen to a conversation between two people, you have a sense of what is happening. You might not know exactly what it means, but you have a sense. And so I guess I was filming around those senses all throughout the time in the film. That perhaps also has to do with what you're saying, the softness.
If I could just follow up on that, I mean, I'm so interested to hear you talk about, what not understanding the particularities of language can open up. One of the things that I was so struck by in the film is just the exquisite sound. I mean, the sound in the film is really extraordinary. There's like the musical elements. There's obviously there's the voiceover. Then there's the voices that are in real time. And then there's just like the location sound, which is extraordinary. And I'm just wondering how you navigated that in the field, like while you were filming, and as you're saying, kind of released a little bit from what understanding every particle of language requires. Was the location sound something that you were aware of, or sort of hyper aware of?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I didn't understand the language, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I didn't care about the sound.
Yeah,
No, the sound was incredibly important.
Yeah, no, you clearly, yeah.
Yeah. No. Throughout the time, I was carrying my camera bag, my tripod, and my sound. So I didn't have a sound person, but wherever I went, I literally just put the zoom and ask whoever is next to me to hold the boom. That's it. Sometimes the boom would come into the camera, but what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? You just and people learn real quickly. And people were paying attention. So if, especially when we were in the farms, I mean, wherever we were, I always had um, direct sound. I didn't know how I was going to use it, but I knew that I wanted to have it no matter what.
And with things like the water and the wind, and the birds ruffling their feathers, were those sounds that you picked up at the time, or that you went back for?
Well, some of them we used. There's some of them we added, in the sound design. Um, there were very specific sounds of birds that I captured, that we used. Some of them that we added, but yeah, for the most part, I think the sound was coming from location.
Amazing sound.
you know, sometimes even the location sound, we would manipulate it whichever way we want to. But yeah. Thanks.
I have a question. I'm here. Thank you so much for this amazing film. It's one of the most amazing films I've ever seen, I have to say. It was incredible. I wonder how you said that you were working 10 years on the film. How much material did you gather, and how did you edit, and how did you know that you were done?
Yeah. So I had a lot of terabytes, many, many, many. Um, like I said, you know, from the first interviews that I started to conduct, it took 10 years. I wasn't living there 10 years.
Mm.
The reason why it took 10 years is because first, I don't live there. And two, I wasn't funded. I was trying to go there once a year,
Mhm.
if possible. There were a few years where I wasn't able to. And so, you know, and also I have a daughter. So, um, I, I had to to understand how I was going to do this film. You know, like just told myself, look, you know, just buckle up. You know, there's no producer or money or whatever. You know, you're just gonna do it the way that you can. You know, you can save this much amount every year and go there for 30 days maximum, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks maximum every year. And throughout the year, I'll stay in touch. You know, with the people. So that's basically how I did it. Now I did have a lot of footage, and at the end, I think that I knew I was done. But my last trip was of March 2020. I literally got back on March 16th of 2020. I think it was the day when they locked it for COVID. So that told me that it was the end. You know, that was going to be the end. But and yeah, so working with the editors, well, literally I just had to watch everything. I just sat there and watched everything. um Not in that order, not linearly, like, oh, sat there and watch it. No. And a lot of the times I didn't necessarily have to. um I could skip, you know, through a lot, because since I was shooting, a lot of the times you have a feeling. Let's just say if you're having like 4 shots, you know which one worked. You already know, you sense it, or which one moved you. And so for me, it was very easy to know that of that bunch, I know which exactly is going to go. So I would be marking those, you know, very, very quickly. And when I got to work with my editor, I already had my own chosen. But then what I did was I wanted to empower my editor, because we were not coming into the same footing. She, you know, it's not fair. I've been working on this for so long, and so to bring her, you know, up to speed, all we did, instead of watch footage together, which we never did, all I did was just sit there, and we have like sessions in which I'm telling her stories, just telling her stories, and ask her to watch the footage, have her own selects, have her own strings, and give her the freedom, in, you know, to based on our conversations and the stories, and where it is that I was not saying this is how it needs to be, but based on those ideas, let's see what we come up with. Both, let's see where we are, you know. And then afterwards, once I saw her sensibility, then we were able to sit down together and then edit. Yeah. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah.
Just following up on that, when did you in these 10 years, when did you make the decision to work with monochrome? How did that?
I think that I think that I knew I wanted it to be that way, but it wasn't until 2016 when I cut. You see, by 2016, I already was amassing this footage, and I was thinking, okay, so until when am I going to continue shooting forever without editing anything? Just just having like all of this footage. So I was thinking, okay, I don't know anybody. I'm going to try to find someone to help me edit a very short out of the footage that I already have. So I got, that's how we edited Hayrat. And for me, the idea was like, okay, let me have this very short, just so that if I need to speak with someone, I could say, oh, like this is kind of what I'm thinking of making this long, you know. So that was the idea. And when I did Khairat and in black and white, I already knew that the Faya would be also black and white.
Question up here in the back.
Hi, Jessica. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful movie. I am a little emotionally like shaky because of how beautiful and powerful that was. My question is, the young man that came back from Egypt, his name was Ibrahim, right? His homecoming story and the feelings of detachment and emptiness that followed, it felt like really powerful. Did any of that? I would imagine there was a lot of parallels between, your life story and his. That kind of guided that editing and how you shot the scenes with him and the other young man. Could you speak on maybe some of those parallels that you felt, you resonated with Ibrahim's story?
Thank you. So Ibrahim, one of the reasons why he left in the first place was because he was being persecuted. He was part of the Oromo peaceful protests, and so they were cracking down on a lot of this youth, so that's why he had to leave. And he was saying when he reached one of the borders, I think beyond Egypt, and they were supposed to now go into this truck that normally is like, it's one of those cylindrical trucks that I don't know if it's for gasoline or something like that, but they were packing it with people. That's when he said all I could think of was my mom. He just couldn't. He thought he was not going to be able to come back ever, and so he returned, to be with his mother, and come what may, right? A lot of them were still in hiding in the farms. Some of them, the one that are in the film, they had to flee to Kenya, So this is what was going on with the Oromo youth at the time, and that was their predicament. And when he was saying to Muhammad, like I'm not gonna take you there, because he was still thinking about going, because again, you come back, you try to like hold your peace and hide in the little farm, but how long can you do that? So right away, after a while, he starts thinking again, okay, how am I going to go? Try to leave, make some money and help my mother, because it's always, how are you going to help back home, right? So it again, it's not. It reminded me of how we left, but the way we left has nothing to do with what is happening with the youth right now. Like, I mean, I left in a plane, and so those were the things that moved me, very much so. People like Muhammad did try to leave too. He was caught by his father, by his tattooing father. Well, that came through. His dad came through for him, at the end of the day, because he tried to leave, and his dad is in the police. He's part of a police. So they had heard that there was going to be a human trafficking. Somebody was concocting this human trafficking scheme that night, and that night Muhammad didn't show up back home. So the father put two and two together, and he got two friends, and they drove to this place. And sure enough, they found Muhammad and his friends that he had convinced to go with him in that holding house, because they were about to take them, and basically they're telling them, oh, we're going to take you to Saudi for free. But what they do is they use these kids for organs, so yeah, the father brought him back. Yes.
Thanks. There are two shots in the film that are in color. Can you tell us something about that choice?
There was one.
I think there's one.
Or two next to each other, maybe.
Yeah, so that's the one with the embers, right? We were editing, and it was just a very intuitive decision. And again, later on, in retrospect, what I understood why I took that decision is to me, Muhammad's biggest fear was to be forgotten by his mom, who's in Saudi, who's gone for work, who doesn't write often, who's not in touch that much any longer, and he has grown. And his biggest fear and nightmare is that she's going to forget him, So that's why he is trying to figure out, how am I going to get to Saudi before she forgets me? That's his idea, So to me, those embers were. I was thinking about the hope that he still has in his heart. Yeah.
I just wanted to, say how much the scenes with Muhammad in the water specifically moved me, because even though like visually they look kind of similar to the rest of the movie with the grading and the contrast and all that, there was like something very palpable and different and very hopeful that like made my chest feel lighter with Muhammad scenes, even though visually they look very similar, but there was such a very distinct feeling that you carried in those scenes specifically. So very well done.
Thank you.
Question over here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this film and for all the insight that you're sharing with us into it. This is sort of maybe extending what you've been sharing about some of the decisions that you've made, such as the choice to use color. In the montage, it really feels at certain points that you're kind of constructing either a memory experience of one of the characters or a fantasy. You're taking us into a subjective experience of some of the people that you're filming in ways that is both quite breathtaking, but then also I ask, like, what, and you talked at the beginning about empathy and how important that is to your process. And so I'm wondering, as you're constructing these scenes that seem to take us into the mental lives of the people that you've been filming and spending time with, how do you kind of negotiate that? How do you bring us in? And when does it feel like you're going too far into a sort of speculative space of trying to construct someone else's thought or lived experience? Does this make sense at all?
I'm trying to.
I guess, you know, like it sort of felt at certain points like you were going into somebody's train of thought, or like we were entering the consciousness of some of the figures in the film, like Muhammad. So, for example, like the choice to show the embers in color and how that reflects a desire or a fear of his. There are many moments in the film where it feels like you're not just occupying your own perspective as a filmmaker, but bringing us as audience members into the perspectives and the psychology of the subjects of the film, which I think is a challenging thing to do when you're making a documentary, because it's a space that we can't access. But that feels like something that particularly comes together in the editing. I mean, am I just sort of in trying to put the fragments together in my own mind, ascribing them to a character's consciousness, or are you working with your editor to try to create a train of thought that we can share with a character?
I think I understand what you mean. Let's see if I do. When I was making this film, you know, at some point I started to realize that everybody's stories is in conversation with one another, like as if it was one, you know, like as if it was a source, you know, and from that source, all of these different emotional experiences are coming. Also because everything is evolving around chat as well. Yeah. So I was thinking about, in terms of shape or form, I was thinking about the refraction of light onto itself. I was thinking about sort of how in a way we are all in conversation with each other, but we're not necessarily listening to each other. I was thinking about like a diamond, you know, and the way in which the light goes.
Diffracts.
Exactly. So I was thinking about that a lot when we were editing, and because everyone has a way in which they're feeling about their personal predicament, right? Muhammad is like tired of his dad, you know, but at the same time he works for people who chew chat, and you know, that's his job, you know, it created, you know, a job for him. At the same time, there's a huge unemployment, you know, in Harar, and yet the people that are working in the chat business. That is where there is a place where there is employment. So there are all of these ironies, you know, that to me were working, and again in conversation, you know, with each other. So that's how I was thinking. But at the same time, I was also trying to construct something very specific for each and every person. For example, Ibrahim, his predicament is that, well, yeah, he came back, but he's gonna still try to leave. You know, the uncle, when they're sitting and they're all getting the chats ready, and he tells them, "Oh, come on, you know, you can have a business here. You know, you don't need to leave." You know, is still trying to convince Ibrahim. They're always having these type of conversations. Always, these conversations abound. Not what the woman says, for example, that she feels lonely, abandoned. Those conversations abound too, because if you chat every day and you're going elsewhere every day and you come back home very late at night, so the wife is going to feel abandoned. These are things that are happening a lot in the community. So as much as for me it was very important to have the farmer and the work, because that is the foundation of that land at this moment, of the economic fact and truth of Harar. And yet at the same time I also wanted to go very specific into, I don't want to idealize, this mode of farming. But at the same time, I want to point out that yes, unemployment is what has us here. There's political oppression that has us here, that also creates all kinds of unemployment if people are being persecuted. So what I'm trying to say is that I wanted to create. I'm not creating, but I'm bringing a world where all of these things coexist. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question.
You gave me so many more questions and so
Oh.
much richness in that. I'm certainly glad you answered the way that you did. Thank you.
I have a in thinking about, I guess, this idea of refraction, or something like refraction. I was so struck by this wonderful sequence where we hear first a mention of playing a film in your own head, right? There's like, and then this sequence of the old projector with the reels, and I was wondering how that came to be. How that, I mean, it's a very striking scene, and it's in a really kind of important place in the film. And I'm wondering how that material came to be.
Well, again, it's something that a lot of people say. It's like a saying, there. It's like, oh, we're gonna choose out and we're gonna watch our own personal movies. It's what people say, because in fact, that's what you do, because you're gonna sit there. You're not gonna be drunk or this or that. It's just slowly this thing is gonna kick in, and you're just going to be released from time and place, and you're going to be tripping somewhere in a movie. They call it a movie. They don't, sometimes they call it a dream, a dream state, markana, or a movie. They call it a movie. And it's almost like what the incredible filmmaker Jibril Diop Mambeti used to say, you want to make a cinema, just close your eyes. And then when you open it, that's it. That was it. So the moment you close your eyes, it's like, you go inside, and what do you find there? Like there's no clear, linear narratives going on when you close your mind. There's all kinds of things happening, and so that's kind of what happens with Murkana. People sit there and you imagine. A lot of the people, what they imagine is how they're going to make their lives better. That is the big subject of everybody's films or dreams in their minds. Once they and people make plans, they make all kinds of plans, how they're going to construct this building tomorrow, and all it just and it seems very incredibly real, and then the next day you do the same and the same, and then and again, so it's again the cycle goes on. But Muhammad in this case is the one who we went to a farm. We were going to shoot because he was also my assistant, so, Muhammad. And so, but, so we went to this farm and we were just sitting there and he's all bored. And, he's asking one of the farmers, so he's like, so that's all, right? That's it. He's asking everybody, how does it feel to be, in Mercana, because he doesn't chew. And the farmer is the one who told him, I don't think that I'm ever going to travel anywhere in my life. Because he was just so comfortable where he was, and he was just chewing, and he was completely, and he told him, but I don't need to, because all I do here is I watch my own movie, And Muhammad didn't forget that. And one day when I gave him the recorder, because we were talking about his mom, and a lot of the times he gets very emotional, and I gave him the recorder, and I said, well, one thing that we can do is, if you, whatever it is that you want to say to your mom, you can take this tape recorder and record, and we can try to send it to her so that she knows how you feel. And a lot of what he recorded is basically the voiceovers that you hear here. So yeah, he was remembering the farmer who said that, you watch a movie in your mind when you're in Mercana. So for me, all of that, it reminded me very much of that movie theater that you see in the film.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up. That's the condition that it's in right now. And we went to visit it one day.
That's
and
the theater you grew up in?
Yeah.
The theater you grew up going to?
Yeah, going to. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, going to. And
You grew up in the theater.
no. So and Muhammad said, oh my God, it's like going into the mind of the people that are watching their movies, And so for me, I was just having Muhammad there, and I was just shooting, and it all came together because it has everything to do with that which we call a cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask, was that late in your process in terms of this 10-year span, or was that something that kind of emerged, those moments?
Like a few years before I finished.
And do you see it now? I mean, it comes across as potentially kind of self-referential, I guess.
Oh my gosh, totally.
And you're with that. You get it. You see it.
Yeah, I'm all about that.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. I mean, no, I really I was definitely thinking about about Mercana and how that was going to shape the form and the structure of this film. That was one of the most important things to me, more than telling some a narrative thing. Having these impulses put together was more important, because when you're high, that's sort of what happens. When you're in that state, when you're not, again, when you're not bound by the pressure of time and space, when your mind is truly free.
Thanks.
Um, mine's more of a three-part question. I'm just kidding. It's been a lovely evening. I think there's some salsa outside in the lobby.
Yeah,
And
pretty.
I would like to thank our moderator and visiting artist, Jessica Beshir, for this lovely evening. Thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you,
coming.
thank you so much for staying with us. Thank
And
you.
thanks for the great questions.
Also, to remind everyone that tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we're hosting a masterclass here with Jessica. So if you're inspired by tonight, please consider stopping by tomorrow.